O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabeg, Dakota Oiete, Dene Sulene, Neuthook nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis, and we acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. Orders of the day, the Honourable Private Member's Business, the Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move the routine proceedings introduction of bills so that the member for Kirkfield Park can move the first reading motion for Bill 208, the Two-Spirit and Transgender Day of Visibility Act, Commemoration of Days, Weeks, and Months Act amended, and for the bill to be ordered for second reading immediately following the passage and distribution of the bill. For clarity, following passage of first reading motion, the House will revert to orders of the day, private members' business. Is there leave to temporarily move routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that the member for Kirkfield Park can move the first reading motion for Bill 208, the Two-Spirit and Transgender Day of Visibility Act, Commemoration of Days, Weeks, and Months Act amended, and for the bill to be ordered for second reading immediately following the passage and distribution of the bill. For clarity, following passage of the first reading motion, the House will revert to orders of the day, private members' business. Is there leave? Agreed. I hear a no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader. Honourable Speaker, could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introductions of bills.
I thought I heard Margaret.
So that the Bill 27, the Labor Relations Amendment Act, be introduced for first reading.
Is there leave to temporarily revert to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that bill number 27, if the Government House Leader could share a copy of her request, please. Is there leave to revert to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 27, the Labor Relations Amendment Act, be read a first time? Is there leave? I hear a no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, to introduce Bill 28, the Labor Relations Amendment Act, bracket 2.
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 28, the Labor Relations Amendment Act 2,
be now read a first time. Is there leave? No. I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Honourable Speaker, could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introductions of bill, so Bill number 26, the Residential Tenancies Amendment Act, be now read.
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introductions of bills, so that Bill number 26, the Residential Tenancies Act Amendment, be now read a first time? Is there leave? I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Government House Leader.
Could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introductions of bills, so Bill 29, the Body, Armor, and Fortified Vehicle Control Amendment Act, be introduced for the first time.
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 29, the Body Armor and Fortified Vehicle Control Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Amigwitch, could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introductions of bills, so that Bill 30, the Unexplained Wealth Act, Criminal Property Forfeiture Act, and Corporations Act, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceeding, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 30, the Unexplained Wealth Act, Criminal Property Forfeiture Act, and Corporations Act amended, be now read a first time? Is there leave? I hear a no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introductions of bills, so Bill 31, the Captured Carbon Storage Act, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceeding, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 31, the Captured Carbon Storage Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so Bill 32, the Manitoba Hydro Amendment Act, be introduced for the first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceeding, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 32, the Manitoba Hydro Amendment Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill 33, the Change of Name Amendment Act, bracket 3, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceeding, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 33, the Change of Name Amendment Act, bracket 3, be now read a first time? Is there leave? Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill 34, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Amendment Act, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 34, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introductions of bills, so that Bill 35, the Seniors Advocate Act, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 35, the Seniors Advocate Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Could you please canvass the House for leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so Bill 36, the Regulated Health Professions Amendment Act, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 36, the Regulated Health Professions Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Would you please canvass the House to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill 12, the Environment Amendment Act, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 12, the Environment Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? No. I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Could you please canvass the House to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill 300, the Winnipeg Foundation Amendment Act, be introduced for a first time?
Is there leave to temporarily move to routine proceedings, introduction of bills, so that Bill number 300, the Winnipeg Foundation Act, be now read a first time? Is there leave? No. I hear no. Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Is it the will of the House to call it 11 and move on to resolutions?
Will of the House to call it 11 o'clock and move on to private members' resolutions? No. Leave has been denied. As there's no further business before the House at this time, I'm going to recess the House. There'll be 1 minute bell ringing prior to 11 o'clock when we resume private members' resolutions. The House is now in recess. Order, please. The hour now being 11 o'clock, it's time for private members' resolutions. The resolution before the House is resolution number 5, put forward by the honourable member for River Heights, calling on the federal government to reduce corporate food waste. The honourable member for River Heights.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to present this resolution to the House, seconded by the MLA for Riel. Oh, sorry. I am new here. I move, seconded by the MLA for Riel, that the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba urge the provincial and federal governments to work together to condemn corporate food waste and support all initiatives that go towards redistributing food to families in need.
Thank you. It's been moved by the honourable member for River Heights, seconded by the honourable member for Riel. Therefore, be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba urge the provincial and federal governments to work together to condemn corporate food waste and to support all initiatives to go towards redistributing food to families in need. The honourable member for River Heights.
Honourable Speaker, I'm pleased to present this resolution this morning, which calls on this chamber to support the province of Manitoba in working with the Government of Canada to both condemn corporate food waste and to support initiatives that go towards redistributing that food to families and individuals in need. Before I get to the substance of my arguments, I want to recognize the presence of some incredible grassroots food security activists from organizations across our province who've taken time out of their busy schedules to join us in the gallery for this debate. On behalf of the members of this chamber, I want to thank them for their ongoing efforts on this important issue. I want to begin, Honourable Speaker, by providing a frame of reference for our discussion to ensure our intentions are not misunderstood. We're not here to call out the food industry for wasteful practices. Far from it. Our government knows the industry is taking its social responsibilities seriously and has been working diligently with the nonprofit sector to reduce overall food waste and to put that food in the hands of those who need it. By way of illustration, my colleague from Waverley and I met recently with the leadership team at Harvest Manitoba. In addition to a tour of their incredible facility, we discussed this issue in some detail, and they were very clear that they count major food producers and manufacturers in our province as being amongst their most enthusiastic partners, something we knew, but we're glad to have reinforced. Instead, the focus of this resolution, Honourable Speaker, is to begin a long overdue public conversation about food waste and food insecurity in our province, and to ensure that all stakeholders at all levels understand the value the members of this chamber see in working together and envisioning the full range of critical infrastructure and incentives that are necessary to get more surplus food onto the tables of those who need it most, and the role in which we all need to play in making that happen. I also want to be clear from the beginning that I do not view this as a partisan issue, and frankly, shame on us if it becomes one. This is exactly the sort of issue voters in our constituencies sent us here to deal with. Well, I think people are generally aware that salvageable food is lost to landfills every day. I think it's safe to say most don't realize the immense scope of the problem or its impacts on food security, the environment, and what the real barriers to utilizing more of it actually are. So let's begin with some facts. By some estimates, more food is thrown out in Canada than is actually consumed. According to Climate Change Connection, approximately 11.2 million tons of edible, nutritious food ends up in our landfills rather than on the tables of people in need. But establishing why that occurs is complicated. In part, it's because food industry models acknowledge that somewhere between 2 and 5% of their product will be lost at each stage of the production process. For members new to this discussion, there are 5 stages in that process: the original production itself, transportation, warehousing, distribution to retailers, and then finally retail. Using these models, as much as 20% of all the food that's produced is lost system-wide before the consumer has even had a chance to access it. Not because of neglect, not because of malice, simply because even the best laid plans sometimes go awry. That said, 20% is too high, and efficiencies need to be found. When one factors in losses that occur as a result of weather, mechanical failure, order duplication, or order cancellation, that number can climb substantially higher. Here, a lack of enough dedicated infrastructure to accept potentially donated food needs to be considered. Let's look at just one aspect of the system. Food primarily travels across Canada by climate-controlled semi-trailer, 26 pallets at a time. So when a problem occurs on the highway, generally it's the entire 26 pallets of goods that need to be quickly found a new home. A serious challenge for even the most dedicated. Here we see infrastructure as the major barrier. For example, the storage capacity of the John Howard Society of Brandon facility, which allows food to be temperature controlled from minus 25 degrees to plus 25 degrees, is just 46 pallets. JHSB then can only accept as much food as their facility can absorb at the time. More broadly, neither food banks nor the distribution networks currently have the storage capacity to accept and then quickly redistribute large volumes of food from suppliers facing time-sensitive decisions. So the reality, Honorable Speaker, is that many producers, shipping companies, and distribution centers end up disposing of perfectly usable food, not because they don't care, but because they can't find some place with the capacity to accept it. This resolution calls on all stakeholders to take a meaningful part in discussions to solve that problem. And it must be solved. Because at the same time as salvageable food is being taken to the landfill, more than 2 million Canadians go hungry, having to rely on an ever-expanding system of food banks. Harvest Manitoba alone reports a 30% increase in food bank usage in 2023, seeing roughly 50,000 people accessing food banks each month. What's more, it's a well-known and shameful legacy of past governments that our province has the highest rate of child poverty anywhere in the country, with 1 in 5 children experiencing food insecurity. Something our government is already hard at work correcting with the announcement of the Universal School Nutrition Program. But we need to find ways to work together to do more. And this resolution is the start of that process. There is no magic bullet, Honorable Speaker. It will take a wide range of initiatives, some regulatory, some infrastructure, and some incentive in nature. Take, for example, ideas like the Manitoba Food Rescue and Emissions Reduction Project, organized by the Climate Change Connection, which aims to put in place a network of 40-foot refrigerated containers to increase the capacity and resiliency of over 380 nonprofits engaged in food redistribution, and in the process, diverting 2 million pounds of greenhouse gases annually. Or perhaps a suggestion to incentivize food producers and distributors with carbon credits for food donated rather than being sent to landfills. Or perhaps developing supports for businesses involved in a more circular economy, so that with incentives so that businesses make use of raw product to turn it into finished product. All options must be on the table, Honorable Speaker, as we deal with this intersection between the destruction of surplus food, poverty, and food insecurity in our communities. I want to conclude, Honorable Speaker, by reminding members that the path to better is different. We need to be different in the way we discuss this issue in this chamber today, different in the way all levels seek to work with each other on these important issues, and with the food industry as a whole, to find the best solutions to what is nothing short of a crisis. No one government or partner in the process can solve this by themselves. We must do it together. We can do better, and this resolution is the first step towards doing exactly that. I ask members opposite to join me today in supporting this resolution as a critical first step towards being better on this issue. We owe it to Manitobans. Thank you.
A question period of up to 10 minutes will be held, and questions may be addressed in the following sequence. The first question asked by a member from another party. Any subsequent questions must follow a rotation between parties. Each independent member may ask one question, and no question or answer shall exceed 45 seconds. The floor is now open for questions. The honourable member for Portage La Prairie.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. To the member opposite, question regarding this is, has there been any look at food labeling options? Like we run into issues with milk, cottage cheese, cheese products, different products out there that do happen to be thrown out. Has there been any look into that? Thank you.
The honourable member for River Heights.
I want to thank the member for that question. It's an important piece of the discussion. We've got a lot of issues around things like best before dates and so on. All of that has to be on the table. And as part of the reason I wanted this as a resolution, to get all of the appropriate parties at the table, having frank discussions about the ways that we move forward. And I think the suggestion of food labeling and dating is critical to the conversation. Thank you for that.
The honourable member for Brandon West. Sorry, the proper rotation is for someone on the other side. Sorry. The honourable member for Assiniboia.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. My question to my colleague is, how would the new Universal Nutrition Program help combat food waste?
The honourable member for River Heights.
I want to thank the member for that question. The Universal Nutrition Program is something I'm incredibly proud of as part of this government. It's an important part of how we approach this problem. And in fact, in the gallery today is someone who does this work for us through the Winnipeg School Division. We had a great conversation in the morning break about how we might best work together on that. This can be an important part of that process. And again, all ideas, all concepts have to be on the table as we attempt to address this problem.
The member for Brandon West.
Honourable Speaker, my question to the member opposite on this very important bill is, have we looked at expiry dates on products? Many products give an artificial expiry date of when it's best before. So I'm wondering if that's part of your discussions or process to look at extending those or looking at realistic expiration dates?
The honourable member for River Heights.
I want to thank the member for the question. Absolutely. Again, all ideas, all processes have to be on the table as we explore how best to deal with this. And you're quite right. The best before dates are in many cases a bit artificial, right? Again, in the intervening period this morning, had an opportunity to talk with some of the stakeholders about that example specifically. One gave a great story of a load of yogurt that they had access to simply because the best before date was about to expire, and it was easier to move it on to someone in the community rather than process it through their own internal systems. Every discussion has to be open for us.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Assiniboia.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to ask the member from River Heights, what are some of the environmental impacts of food waste?
The honourable member for River Heights.
Thank you. I know that some of my colleagues who are following up in this discussion this morning are going to speak more specifically to the environmental side of things. But I wanted to refer back to the comment in relation to the Manitoba Food Rescue Project. The work that they want to do in terms of creating refrigerator containers to have places to store surplus food would divert, that project alone would divert 2 million pounds of greenhouse gases annually. So the environmental impact can be huge while solving a human need. Thank you.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The member from River Heights had mentioned that within this issue there are constraints on logistics and infrastructure around potential waste and needing to curb that. So my question for the member would be, who within industry has all been consulted in the drafting of this resolution, and have those considerations been made?
The honourable member for River Heights.
This resolution represents, thank you for the question. It's an important one. The resolution has been drafted in anticipation of an exhaustive process working with all stakeholders within this issue. There has been some casual conversations that have gone on with industry itself. Most of my conversations to get the appropriate lay of the land in terms of the human need has started with the nonprofits here in the community. They're the ones that are the linchpin in terms of making sure that whatever we keep out of the landfill has someplace appropriate to go. So that's where we began. But industry needs to be at the table during these conversations.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Assiniboia.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to ask my colleague, how can this House ensure that we see movement on this at the federal level?
Honourable member for River Heights.
Thank you for that question, and it's an important one too. A lot of times we do things here in the House with an uncertain outcome, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't begin that journey. Our government has had an excellent working relationship with the federal government to this point. You look at things like what we've done around the environment, what we've done around healthcare to this point, all speak well to the possibility of success. And that has to be how we approach every conceivable conversation on every issue, desiring to work together for the best possible solution.
The honourable member for Portage La Prairie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable member of River Heights, has there been any work that's been looked at, including the private sector individuals, that could play a leadership role in reducing the amount of food that is wasted, including contributing and covering the cost strategies to this? Thank you.
The honourable member for River Heights.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, those conversations are going on. They've been started, but we need more of the stakeholders at the table, right? We need the federal government prepared to step up and support on their side of the incentive piece. My understanding from working with members of the nonprofit sector, that they're engaged in those conversations all the time. How do they work with industry to make more efficient use of the food that is available? But they struggle because their capacities are limited. We need to get all the stakeholders at the table to make sure that the best path forward is found. But absolutely,
First time has expired. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. My question is again around the Universal Food Program, or the food program for the schools, and the opportunity for a partnership. And I'm wondering, you spoke a little bit about it, but how many millions or hundreds of thousands do you think in dollars will this save this program and our taxpayers?
The honourable member for River Heights.
Thank you for the question. It's an important one. The calculations about potential savings haven't been done yet, largely because we haven't got, at the moment, everybody at the table to talk about how we would manage that, right? Until we've had an opportunity to sit down with all of the stakeholders, provincial, federal, industry, school divisions, there'd be no way of calculating what the potential savings would be, but certainly one would think they would be significant.
Are there no further questions? The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And my question again would be to the member from River Heights on getting back to the logistics and infrastructure comment that he made around dealing with potential waste that arises from some of those risks. And my question would be, what type of incentives, we had heard many times that different incentives could be created to offset these risks. What type of incentives, or have there been a list of incentives that are potential that have been brought together and created to offset food waste?
The honourable member for River Heights.
I want to thank the member for the question. It would be inappropriate for me to predetermine the best incentives or the best programs for industry. That has to be a part of the conversation between industry itself and the various governmental stakeholders to see what works for everybody. Certainly you and I could sort out some things that we think are best, but it's industry and the government officials in the various ministries that are best suited to make those determinations.
The time for questions has expired. The floor is now open for debate. The honourable member for Portage La Prairie.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak on this idea of not wasting food we produce. In my constituency of Portage La Prairie, and as well as being the agricultural critic, I have the opportunity to see the frustration from the grower level, as well as seeing folks not being able to buy fruit, vegetables, milk, or meat. I don't think any one of us here can say that we haven't seen somebody, whether it be young, old, somebody that's a teenager, of all different races, that is looking in dumpsters and that to find a meal to eat. And every day that breaks my heart when I see that. I live in a community that I think is a very good, wealthy community, and I would have never thought about this, but being at a presentation that the Portage Community Foundation put on, and they have people that submit grants, looking for grants. One of the people that were looking for grants was people, seniors in Portage La Prairie. And I would have never thought that the people that have come before us, that have worked so hard, would struggle to be able to afford a meal. The Portage Community Foundation has been happy to provide $10,000 in order to help seniors and to help them be able to feed themselves. But again, this is such a rich country that we live in. And to think that there's people out there that are starving every day, that are looking for the next meal every day. And we know whether it's somebody that wakes up in the morning that's an older person, a child going to school, a person in the afternoon looking for a snack that we take for granted, a cup of coffee, whatever it may be, some people just can't afford that. And it sickens me to think about that. It's unfortunate that when a farmer sends an animal to be slaughtered, there might be a number of things that are not being used, as it's viewed as not being a prime cut. As a child, I remember and not enjoying, but I remember eating things like liver, kidneys. My mom used to stuff tongue and heart, pig's feet, chicken foot soup, head cheese. These are all products that we think we wouldn't eat, but there's nothing like a good head cheese sandwich out there, I believe. These cuts all have value and would supply a good source of food. I was looking in my fridge this morning, and that's where I come up with the question for the Honorable Speaker from River Heights. When I looked in my fridge this morning, I found a liter of milk that was dated March 11th. Does that mean it's no good? Or it might cause me harm? I don't believe so unless I'm leaving it out on the counter or in the sun. Today, milk producers are pouring milk above their quotas down the drain. They aren't receiving payment for it, but it's going down the drain. And milk is such an important substance for us as we grow up, for healthy bones. But again, thinking about those seniors in Portersville Prairie, those people that have brittle bones need to be having milk as well too. Why are we not able to use the milk to feed someone that's not able to afford that liter of milk that we take for granted? Think about the savings we could possibly have in our healthcare system if we're able to get proper servings of milk, vegetables, fruit, meat, etc. I've talked to different doctor friends of mine that have told me about issues with younger kids that are not getting the proper amount of vegetables and fruit out there. I look at opportunities that we have out there with some great people like the Keystone Vegetable Producers, the Keystone Potato Growers Association, Manitoba Milk Producers. There's many different opportunities that we have there. Potato farmers. When a potato farmer raises a potato that is big and bulky, you would think that would be a benefit to them. It's not. Unfortunately, it's wrong. If it doesn't fit into that fast food container that restaurants dictate the farmer actually gets docked in his payment, what happens to those potatoes that are discarded, that are left in the field to rot? When the frost gets to them, they're no good anymore. What about those vegetables that we leave in gardens, whether they be cucumbers, whether they be pumpkins? There's also a part that individuals can play in this. When a vegetable farmer is growing carrots or onions, and they don't fit into that plastic bag that the consumer wants, what happens to that? First of all, the farmer must get rid of them, because again, they will be docked in price. They will either be dumped in a field, they will go to waste, they will go to refuge sites, they will either be dumped or used for animal feed. Why are these not good enough for us to consume? A little bruise here and there on a carrot, A little soft spot on an onion or a green pepper doesn't mean that that whole thing is spoiled, and it doesn't take away from the nutritional value of that as well either. Here are a few things that are currently being done that I know of from companies like McCain's, Simplot, Cavendish. These are all French fry companies, and I know all of them hold free Fridays, not Friday, Fridays, where you can come and get bags and bags of French fries. They may be secondary, but again, because a French fry has a bruise on it or doesn't look good, isn't all white, doesn't mean that it's not consumable. Vegetable farmers that are growing carrots or onions are leaving crops in the field, but they are working with local church organizations to donate these items to those that might not be able to afford. Manitoba egg producers. Again, an egg has to be just perfect in order for it to be passed. An egg carton has a best before date on it. Does that mean that if we don't eat it before it's time, that a chicken will fly out of that container? Again, there's opportunities for all of our people out there that we should be able to look at something like this. Manitoba farmers are some of the most charitable people in Canada. In fact, the southeast portion of Manitoba, I believe, was the most charitable. The one concern that I do have with Manitoba growers Manitoba growers are some of the most generous people that I know of out there when it comes to making donations for food banks, when it comes to donating for fowl suppers. The other ones too are the Hutterite colonies that we deal with. They all grow huge gardens out there. And I know that if anybody comes to a Hutterite colony and is looking for food, they're more than happy to give it to them. What about the waste that we see when an animal is hit on the highway? What happens to that carcass out there? Is it not for anybody to consume? But the one concern I have with the Manitoba growers, whether they be a cattle producer, a hog farmer, a corn grower, just to give you a couple examples, is they're being forced to tighten their belts with the carbon tax that it is, and going to get worse on April 1st. Unfortunately, for those producers of these foods I have mentioned, they have very little or no alternatives that they can use but to pay the tax supported by this NDP government. There's an opportunity here for us to feed the people.
Order, please. The member's time has expired. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I would like to thank the Honourable Member for River Heights for bringing this very important piece of legislation forward so that we can all debate it and discuss this and the importance of this in our House here. I'm very pleased to know up in the gallery we have two people from the City of Brandon, and I'm going to speak a little bit about their food rescue and what they're doing in Brandon and within my jurisdiction that is shared with the member from Brandon East and the member from Spruce Woods. So up in the gallery, we have Ross Robinson, who is the Executive Director of the John Howard Society and the Operations Manager for the Brandon Food Rescue Grocery Store. And we also have Ted Zogan, and he is the chair of the board for the John Howard Society, and they both support the food rescue in our city of Brandon. So I would like to thank them for attending today and being here in the gallery to support this very important discussion. So I'm going to keep a lot of my comments towards food waste and food recovery as it happens within the city of Brandon. And then I'm going to move a little bit further into some of the areas that we're all responsible for and that we can all help with. So this morning, it was timely. Myself and the member for Portage La Prairie went for breakfast, and this very topic came up about food waste and about what we can do to help individuals. And we talked about just what the member from Portage La Prairie brought up earlier today, is people going into dumpsters or garbage cans outside of fast food restaurants, outside of apartment buildings, residential areas, to try and find their next meal. And, pardon me, Honorable Speaker, I find that deplorable, that in a country that is so rich, as was eloquently brought forward by the member from Portage La Prairie, we are such a very rich country. Why do we have such a need for food and food rescue within our province, but within our country? So with those opening remarks, I'd like to discuss a little bit about what's happening in Brandon. So in Brandon, we have the Food Rescue Grocery Store, currently located at 719 Rosser Avenue in Brandon. But the good news is they're closing down there. The even better news is they're moving to a great brand new location that will give them tons more space, and they'll be able to use the freezers and fridges that have been donated to them over time because of the space that they're moving to. This will allow so much more product to be brought out of the dumpsters, out of the landfills, and into the stores where consumers in Brandon can pay for them. And it's not uncommon. And again, this thanks goes to the members that are in the gallery. The work that they do there is phenomenal, and a lot of volunteers as well that help with this food rescue store. But what I can tell you about the food rescue store in Brandon is that often these commodities are brought in, they're saved from the landfill, and they're sold, making profit for a slight profit for their business, but they're sold at 1/4 of the retail price. So people that are having a very hard time, that are struggling at the cost of food, the soaring prices, the additional carbon tax and prices that are put on anything from the making of food, the delivery of food, the fuel to get the food there. These folks are helping residents in Brandon, and I'm sure my residents from Brandon West. So once they move, they will now be located at 800 Rosser Avenue. So they're moving across the street, but to what's known as the town center and a bigger area. It will provide ample parking now. It will provide mobility device ability for people to enter the store, and it will also allow people to be out of the environments when they're waiting in line or waiting for their food at the food rescue. So very important. Certainly, by the article that was recently in the local newspaper, the Brandon Sun, it will provide a better customer experience for those that don't necessarily have the opportunity.
Order, please. I'd ask the member to please confine his remarks to the resolution before us. He's giving a member statement at the moment. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'll get back on track here. So the food waste that would typically end up in the landfill, in 2022, the project for the Brandon Food Recovery Grocery Store saved $2.3 million worth of food from going to the landfill, which I think is very important. That's part of our diversion, part of our discussion here on this resolution, is to talk about how we can help better corporate areas to move this forward. This food would typically end up in the landfill, but there's also saved more than 3 million pounds of greenhouse gas emissions. So I think that's very worthy to note, is that not only are they saving food, they're saving the environment and making sure that it's done in a very palatable way for all Manitobans. So if I could go a little bit further with community collaboration, another important area in our area in southwestern Manitoba is the Community Wellness Collaborative. And it is a group of individuals that also are looking at food waste and making sure that that is top of mind for Brandonites and for people within our area. Their goal is to make sure that all people have access to food, whether it be brought from corporate waste or whether it be at a lower retail price. So going back a little bit further, I think some of the areas that we can look at is the great cooperation that we get within our shared regions. And one of the areas that was brought up was about potatoes. And so last year, the potato industry they had a great crop from what I understand, but there was a number of potatoes that were left over. And those potatoes that were left over, a lot were left in the ground to go to waste, and a lot of these could be harvested and could be brought to local food banks, local food rescues, and keep them out of, help feed people that are in need. So I know that locally, Carberry, which is very, very well known for their potato growth, offered a day, actually I believe it was 2 days, where people could come out to the fields, designated fields, and dig their own potatoes. And that was offered by the corporations that run these farms. So it is an excellent idea and another way that we can look at harvesting some of this that would be corporate food waste and putting it into the hands of people that would need it. And again, I thank the member for River Heights for bringing this topic forward, because it's added a lot of discussion. And I can say again, our discussion this morning was around what we can do as legislators here in this chamber and how we can support this important resolution and make sure that not only the province of Manitoba, but our federal government also is involved with this, and implore them and lobby them and ask them to be involved with us as a partner here in Manitoba, and make sure that the millions of pounds of food waste end up being consumed by people that need it. And hopefully we can start ending some of the chronic shortage of food that individuals see. And certainly for me, it hits at the heart when children and when newborns aren't getting nutrition, the elderly, the people that worked very hard for our country to make sure that we are here today, fought for our freedoms and made sure that Canada and Manitoba is such a great province. And when they're not having the food security, it's a concern. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Acting House Leader on House Business.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to announce that the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs will meet on Thursday, April 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. to consider the report and recommendations of the Judicial Compensation Committee dated November 21st, 2023.
It has been announced that the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs will meet on Thursday, April 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. to consider the report and recommendations of the Judicial Compensation Committee dated November 21, 2023. The Honourable Member for Riel.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to my friend and hardworking colleague, the member from River Heights, for this important resolution and his insightful words. I'm pleased to rise to speak to this resolution that calls on our government to partner with our federal counterparts and stakeholders in working together to reduce food waste and to support initiatives that will instead redistribute food to Manitobans in need. We can all agree that food waste is simply unjust. To have such a high amount of food waste when so many Manitobans, including Manitoban children, are going hungry due to food insecurity is a travesty. We know we can do better. We must do better for kids and families that are struggling to put food on the table during this affordability crisis. It's why our NDP government is implementing a universal nutrition program in our schools, and it's why we're bringing forward this important resolution. Increasing numbers of Manitobans are currently facing food insecurity. We see this anecdotally in greater demand for the Christmas cheerboard hampers to the point where they shut down taking further requests, which I believe is something that has never happened before. We also see it in what we're hearing in each of our constituencies. Just recently, I had the opportunity to visit the Youville Community Health Center in my constituency of Riel, along with some of my NDP colleagues. And when we were there, we heard of the great demand for the community food bank and how food insecurity and the social determinants of health were directly impacting how this great community resource center was responding in delivering healthcare. Beyond these anecdotal accounts, we have concrete numbers that back up the importance of this issue for Manitobans. Numbers like 1 in 5 children experiencing food insecurity in our province. The fact that Harvest Manitoba reported a 30% increase in food bank usage every month. A 30% increase in food bank usage in 2023. An increase that is staggering. 50,000 people using the food bank every month. That is, in fact, around the population of the city of Brandon, our second largest city in Manitoba. This food insecurity is compounded by the affordability crisis that Manitobans have faced over the last number of years, skyrocketing inflation, a previous provincial government that raised the costs on renters, didn't partner with other levels of government to address affordable housing, and resulted in more and more Manitobans struggling to make ends meet. Compound this with food inflation being over 10% and wages not correspondingly increasing, and you have the perfect storm for why many Manitobans are struggling to put food on the table for their families. We quite simply have to address food insecurity, but there's also another significant benefit and reason to support this resolution as the first step in reducing food waste. And that's because keeping food waste out of our landfills will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, emissions that are warming our atmosphere and causing the greatest crisis of our time, climate change. When food ends up in the landfill, as opposed to being consumed or composted, it produces methane gas emissions. When we talk about greenhouse gas emissions, we often focus on carbon dioxide, which we should. But we also need to talk about and recognize the impact of methane. And that's because methane gas is arguably an even more harmful greenhouse gas emission, or greenhouse gas, more so than carbon dioxide when it comes to global warming. The methane coming from our landfills is far more potent than carbon dioxide, and it traps more heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. Landfills in Manitoba produce 1.3 metric tons of carbon dioxide, or 6% of Manitoba's total greenhouse gas emissions. And every ton of food and organic waste in the landfills generates approximately 400 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent. What's concerning, and what this resolution highlights, is these emissions are largely avoidable and unnecessary. This is why the Department of Environment and Climate Change and the Minister responsible, my colleague, the member for Rossmere, has been working hard to reduce emissions from landfills. The Department of the Environment and Climate Change has been administering the Manitoba Compost Support Payment Program since 2014, which provides grants around our province, across our province, and is providing $875,000 in 2024 to support the diversion of 84,000 tons of organic waste from landfills. This support goes to places like the City of Brandon, the City of Portage la Prairie, the City of Steinbach, City of Winnipeg, EnviroClean Landfill Solutions in Morden, Forks Renewal Corporation in Winnipeg, Green Opportunities near Winkler, the Overton Environmental, in Portage la Prairie, and Waste Connections of Canada in Winnipeg. Additionally, the Department of Environment and Climate Change is providing $46,000 to Take Pride Winnipeg for an education and awareness campaign on waste diversion, recycling, and the circular economy. Food waste reduction is an important part of the circular economy. I'd like to also just highlight and thank Manitobans that are diverting their own food waste by backyard composting, something that my own family is proud to participate in, and something that I encourage all Manitobans to try out as an easy way to divert waste from the landfill and to reduce your own emissions, which can reduce your household waste by 30%. Quite simply, we must act, Honourable Speaker, or Honourable Deputy Speaker. 2023 was the warmest year so far in recorded history of the planet, and 2024 is on pace to be even warmer. Global warming is here, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The climate has changed, and we're seeing the effects here in Manitoba with our unusually warm winter and one of the warmest and driest on record. There is a cost for doing nothing. Droughts, floods, wildfires, extreme weather events caused by climate change have a devastating impact on the lives of Manitobans and a significant economic impact on all of us. Under the previous PC government, Manitoba emissions actually increased by 10%, giving Manitoba the embarrassing distinction of being the only province in Canada that has seen an increase as opposed to a decrease in our emissions. We must reduce our methane and carbon dioxide emissions immediately and drastically. That's why our NDP government is working towards introducing an electric vehicle rebate and expanding geothermal heat pump uptake, something we know that Manitobans and even the opposition are excited about, and rightly so. And that's also why we're bringing forward this resolution today, to reduce our emissions, to make life more affordable for Manitobans. I'd urge all members of this legislature to unanimously support this resolution. We need to start the conversation with the federal government, with the different stakeholders, including large grocery stores, to ensure we work to make food more readily available for all those people in need. We need to minimize the waste that's affecting our environment and contributing to increased gas emissions. And we need to start moving toward all Manitobans and families and ensuring that all families have the food they need so that they can live healthy and fulfilling lives where everyone can live up to their full potential. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
So before we continue on with debate, I just want to direct all honourable members' attention to the gallery. We have seated in the public gallery from Dr. George Johnson School 44 grade 7 and 8 students from the under the direction of Nathan Harding. This group is located in the constituency of the Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli. And with that, the Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'm happy to rise this morning and just put a few words on record in favour of this resolution that my colleague from River Heights has brought forward this morning. And I'll keep my remarks short because I'd like to see the resolution passed here this morning, but just to share a few thoughts. I think that it's important to recognize that there are a few groups who are particularly at risk. Northern Manitobans, seniors, oftentimes children in our schools, international students. You know, it was interesting for me to learn that there are 35.3% of survey respondents at the University of Manitoba face food insecurity. Just an interesting stat. It brings it to reality a little bit more here, Honourable Speaker. And we know how important adequate nutrition is. We know that children, youth, us as adults, we function better. We are healthier when we get adequate nutrition. And that's why, too, this resolution is really important to be debating here inside of the House. And I'm encouraged when I read through the resolution to see that the member is urging both the provincial and the federal government to work together on this, because I do believe it is multi-level legislation. We all throughout Canada, whether that be at a federal level, provincial, and I would even suggest municipal level, there is a role that we can be playing to ensure that all Manitobans in our case, but Canadians at large, have the food and have the nutrition that we need. I think about the food programs in schools being rolled out, and I just really want to encourage the government to make sure that they do this adequately. And I believe that there's huge potential here, but I know I've been speaking with some schools, and we want to make sure that this is additional resources on top of what they currently have, and that schools don't end up having to pay more for this. It makes me think about ensuring access to northern communities. We used to have a colleague in the House, her name was Judy Clausen. She was the MLA for Kiiwetinoong, and she often spoke about food and ensuring that it was accessible to those up north, and how, for example, the price of milk up north exponentially higher than the price of milk here in the city of Winnipeg. We need to be exploring all of these different topics, Honourable Speaker. In fact, it was this provincial government who froze the Northern Healthy Foods Initiative for multiple years. This initiative to increase food security efforts at the community level, and we need to make sure that northern communities develop the local capacity to ensure that food prices will be stabilized, as northern communities have some of the highest food prices all across the province. And Honourable Speaker, we also need to think about seniors in our province. Many seniors, they're on fixed incomes right now, and we all know the way cost of living has been going up, and whether that be through prices of groceries, whether that be gas prices, just all in all, Honourable Speaker, we know that seniors are struggling more than ever to be able to afford not only their groceries, but for example, their prescription medications. How are they to balance all this while receiving the nutrition that they need? Honourable Speaker, just in closing again, because I'd like to see the resolution here passed this morning, I want to thank those who took the time. I believe there's been a big email campaign on this resolution. I've received many emails. I suspect that my colleagues also received many emails. So I'd like to thank those who took the time to send the emails. I'd like to thank those who have joined us today up in the gallery for your efforts on this resolution and for coming out and being part of the democratic process here at the Legislature. And I'd like to just give a quick shout out to Winnipeg Harvest, Siloam Mission, Agape Table, Oak Table, Food Rescue in Brandon, Manitoba, just for all of their work and their continued efforts. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. And I'd also like to thank the member from River Heights for bringing forward this resolution today, which calls on the federal government and also working together with the provincial government to offset food waste in Manitoba and our entire country. I'd like to shed light on when this initiative had started, and I take great pride that it was actually under a progressive conservative government. That back in 1994, the Food Donations Act was created, and it saw royal assent just before Christmas in 1994. This legislation encouraged the increased donations of healthy and nutritious food supply by removing the barriers that cause concerns for donors as a result of the liability. This was drafted in response to the need that was brought forward by Winnipeg Harvest back in 1994. The Food Donations Act makes it clear that any Manitoban or business who makes a food donation cannot be held liable if the food causes illness or injury. I think as legislators, we need to be mindful of what incentivizes this type of behavior within Manitoba. And Manitoba is one of the most generous provinces in the entire country of Canada. I'm hopeful that both the provincial and federal government are able to reduce regulation for business instead of forcing action by regulation. I truthfully feel that that's the most important when we incentivize food donation within our province. More regulation has been seen by the Liberal government federally and NDP government provincially, and I'm really hopeful that as we move forward to incentivize food donation, that we're able to see a change. Very proud of some initiatives that have been taking place within Manitoba and led by southern Manitoba and many within the constituency of La Vérendrye. $32 million in food donations last year were made as a result of the generosity.
Order. When this matter is again before the House, the honourable member will have 8 minutes remaining. The hour being 12 p.m., this House is recessed and stands recessed until 1:30 p.m.